proyecto y seminario de apertura Establecer puentes, explorando el multilingüismo en un mundo globalizado. Saludamos a las autoridades que nos acompañan hoy. Doctor Rodrigo Vargas Vitoria, decano de la Facultad de Ciencias de la Educación de la Universidad Católica del Maule. Señor Jorge Burgos Muñoz, director general de vinculación con el medio. Janet Blasque González Galás, directora general de aseguramiento de la calidad institucional. Doctora Liliana Zúñiga Venega, directora de investigación. Orieta Denet Gómez, directora de comunicaciones. Saludamos de manera especial a los investigadores nacionales asociados. Doctor Andrew Filomin-Rach, de la UCM. Doctora Lucía Ovilla Rosales, de la UFRO. Doctor Jorge Gabriel Brauchi Castillo, de la Universidad del Biobío. Y a los investigadores extranjeros que están presentes vía streaming. Doctor Gilvan Müller de Oliveira, de Brasil. Doctor Gaurav Kumar, de India. Doctor Anik Nandi, de India. Y a la profesora Claudia Alejandra Bornia, de Argentina. También al investigador responsable, doctor Ranjiva Ranjen, y a la coinvestigadora nacional, doctora Mariana Lázaro Salazar. Autoridades universitarias, señoras y señores, tengan todos ustedes muy buenos días. La Red Internacional de la ANPOL tiene por objetivo fortalecer la investigación de los diferentes contextos del multilingüismo, las políticas lingüísticas que se proyectan y sus implicaciones para el desarrollo sostenible de las comunidades lingüísticas en las regiones de Chile. De esta manera, establecer puentes, explorando el multilingüismo en un mundo globalizado, nace a partir de la particularidad en la que Chile se concibe como un país homogéneo y monolingüe. Sin embargo, en la Constitución de 1980 no se establece ningún idioma oficial. Esto sumado a la falta de sistematización de conocimientos sobre el tema. Antes de iniciar con este seminario, dejamos con usted al doctor Rodrigo Vargas Vitoria, decano de la Facultad de Ciencias de la Educación, para que nos entregue unas palabras de bienvenida.
Muy buenos días a todos y todas. Para la Facultad de Educación y para la Universidad Católica del Maule es muy importante este momento, pero también el resultado de lo que implica generar lazos asociados justamente al multilingüismo. Chile en su política pública ha establecido que todos los jóvenes deben tener dos lenguas, la nativa y el inglés, es decir, ser bilingües. Hasta hoy no lo hemos cumplido. Esto es meta 2030. Es difícil si no se activan procedimientos de gestión política de la política pública que efectivamente considera esta variable como una muy importante, inserta en todas las escuelas y colegios del país. Este tipo de iniciativa que lidera el doctor Ranjiva, con apoyo de la Dirección General de Vinculación y la Vicerrectoría de Investigación y Posgrado, y con la Facultad de Ciencias de la Educación, por supuesto, nos permite aportar el conocimiento que se genera a partir de este proceso y de este gran proyecto, insumos para que las autoridades del país las consideren, las tomen en cuenta, de modo de definir estrategias que sean exitosas y lograr este gran propósito, este gran objetivo. Hoy, inglés abre puertas, y de eso todos estamos convencidos, ¿no? Así que les deseo mucho éxito. Muchas gracias. Aprovechar la instancia de agradecer a todos aquellos investigadores internacionales que nos acompañan vía streaming, pero también a nuestros investigadores que, independiente de su nacionalidad, aportan para que este proyecto sea exitoso. Mucho éxito, muchas gracias.
Agradecemos las palabras de nuestro decano. Invitamos a pasar adelante al señor Jorge Burgos Muñoz, director general de vinculación, para que nos comparta unas palabras de bienvenida.
Muy buenos días a todas y a todos. Buenas noches también. Good evening a los colegas que están en India. Para nosotros es un gusto poder ser parte de esta ceremonia de inicio de este proyecto hoy. Lo decíamos hace pocos meses atrás, creo que fue en enero, cuando nos reunimos y conocimos con mucha alegría el resultado digamos, de la adjudicación de 8 proyectos de este tipo en la Universidad Católica del Maule, 8 FOVIs, que son los proyectos de fomento a la vinculación internacional. En el proceso anterior habíamos tenido 3, por lo tanto hay un crecimiento significativo y también hay una muestra que las redes que están llevando a cabo y desarrollando nuestros cuerpos académicos están teniendo un efecto también en términos de estas relaciones que van más allá muchas veces de proyectos de investigación, publicaciones, sino que también van en proyectos que están aplicados específicamente a los territorios y a las necesidades del territorio. Sin duda, y él lo decía el decano, el inglés es una segunda lengua que nos abre puertas y nos permite establecernos en un mundo global, con códigos de comunicación que son específicos, pero también un elemento muy significativo de este proyecto tiene que ver con el reconocimiento de las lenguas de pueblos originarios, también de lenguas que están presentes en nuestro país a partir de procesos migratorios, ¿cierto? Y cómo trabajar, investigar sobre aquello y también aportar al desarrollo de política pública en esta materia nos permite crecer y desarrollarnos como una sociedad más inclusiva. Entonces ese es un elemento importante y qué bueno que en términos de cooperación también estemos trabajando en alianzas nacionales con la Universidad del Biobío, la Universidad de la Frontera, ¿cierto? También con vecinos de la región, como en Brasil, la Universidad Federal de Santa Catarina, ¿cierto? Y hemos dado también un salto importante y llegamos con este tipo de proyectos a India. Uno dice, bueno, ¿por qué? Pero son realidades que a veces son disímiles, pero son elementos que se comparten. India es una nación con muchísimas lenguas distintas. Lo podrán saber nuestros colegas, que me imagino dominan más de 3 o 4 lenguas a lo menos, dado el contexto que tienen en su país. Pero a partir de ese tipo de procesos también nosotros en Chile podemos aprender y podemos aportar. Y cuando nuestro rector también lo decía al momento de iniciar su proceso y su mandato acá en la universidad, dentro de sus ejes están la internacionalización, la digitalización, ¿cierto? Y también el fortalecimiento de posgrados. Y en términos de internacionalización hemos ido haciendo esfuerzos institucionales significativos para que nuestros estudiantes, nuestros académicos y académicas puedan tener una experiencia internacional presencial en un país extranjero, pero también para que la internacionalización aborde dimensiones que hoy día están siendo más exploradas y qué bueno que sea así, como es la cooperación, como es también la internacionalización curricular y distintos elementos que en definitiva nos permiten crecer como una comunidad más global, considerando nuestra realidad del Maule, pero también mirando otros horizontes. Así que felicitarles, desearles mucho éxito en el desarrollo de este proyecto. Sin duda, el resultado de esto va a ser un aporte significativo a nuestra región y al país, y estaremos también desde la Dirección General de Vinculación atentos para ver cómo podemos ir apoyando este proceso. Muchas gracias.
Agradecemos las palabras del Director General de Vinculación. Por último, invitamos a que nos entregue un saludo a la doctora Liliana Zúñiga Venega, directora de investigación de nuestra Casa de Estudios.
Bien, muy buenos días a todos y a todas. En nombre de la Dirección de Investigación les queremos dar la más cordial bienvenida al lanzamiento de este proyecto de fomento de la vinculación internacional en la Universidad Católica del Maule. Bueno, los contextos multilingüísticos pueden ser de diversas áreas y abordar diferentes contextos, como por ejemplo las comunidades locales donde se hablan distintas lenguas indígenas o áreas urbanas cosmopolitas donde se escuchan diferentes idiomas de gente que vienen de distintas partes del mundo. Puede surgir por diversas razones, ¿cierto? Como la migración, la colonización, la diversidad étnica o culturales y diversas religiones. Y en estos entornos las personas suelen tener la habilidad, digamos, de intercambiar diferentes idiomas según el contexto social en que se encuentre, según el contexto familiar, según el contexto laboral. Bueno, si me lo permite, me gustaría compartir con ustedes un pequeño dato que quizás no es tan actual, sino que yo más bien lo aprendí cuando tuve la oportunidad de vivir en Barcelona, durante 5 años, donde allí hay un paseo peatonal, la Rambla, quizás ustedes lo conocen, ¿cierto? Tendrá unos 800 metros de distancia, caminarla se demorará unos 15 minutos, 20 minutos, y en ese momento, cuando yo estudié allá, aprendí el dato que en un estudio, en una caminada por la Rambla, se escucharon más de 90 idiomas y dialectos distintos en esos 15 minutos que dura el paseo. Entonces, claro, wow, estamos en una ciudad evidentemente muy cosmopolita. Entonces surgen preguntas, ¿cierto?, de cómo podemos desarrollar estos temas en las comunidades y en los territorios, como por ejemplo, cómo se interactúan las lenguas entre sí, cómo se transmiten estas lenguas de generación en generación, y cómo impacta el desarrollo de las políticas en la cultura, en la economía y en las comunidades en sí. Entonces, sabemos que, y según lo que nos han comentado, Chile es un país muy pobre en políticas de lengua y de multilingüismo. Entonces, el hecho de que este proyecto se haya adjudicado en ANID pone de manifiesto la necesidad, y que estamos en el momento y en el contexto sociopolítico quizás, de fortalecer estas lenguas para poder avanzar y que nos permitan promover de alguna manera la cohesión social, ¿cierto? Facilitar la comunicación, impulsar el desarrollo económico y cultural, por ejemplo, el multilingüismo en el turismo, garantizar la igualdad de oportunidades y preservar y revitalizar algunas lenguas que podrían estar en peligro, ¿cierto? Dicho de otro modo, las políticas lingüísticas son fundamentales para gestionar la diversidad lingüística, promover la inclusión social y garantizar el desarrollo sostenible de las comunidades en este mundo cada vez, ¿cierto?, más globalizado. Yo quisiera felicitar al equipo del Dr. Ranjiva. Es un proyecto muy innovador, digamos, que se viene a hacer cargo de una realidad que no es tan antigua, ¿cierto? Hay escenarios ahora que están pidiendo quizás a gritos que se haga más investigación en esto, y sobre todo con esta característica, por supuesto, de estos proyectos que son a través de la colaboración y las redes internacionales, que son, para nuestra forma de ver la ciencia, es la única forma, digamos, que tenemos de avanzar de manera significativa, es a través de la colaboración. Así es que felicitar nuevamente al equipo del proyecto y desearle el mejor de los éxitos, y sin duda soy una convencida que va a retribuir mucho a la comunidad y a la sociedad, y en ese caso es un excelente ejemplo de la vinculación que la universidad busca tener y el efecto que impacte en la comunidad, ¿cierto? Así que muchas gracias por eso y bienvenidos a todos a esta actividad. Hasta luego.
Agradecemos las palabras de la doctora Liliana Zúñiga. A continuación, invitamos a pasar adelante al académico de la Universidad Católica del Maule, Dr. Ranjiva Ranjan, investigador responsable del proyecto de fomento a la vinculación internacional, para realizar una pequeña presentación de este y su alcance.
Y tengo que utilizar.
Hablar el micrófono para que las personas que están allá no escuchen.
Ya. Aló, aló. Buen día. ¿Me escuchan? Sí, ya. Gracias, muy buenos días. Primero, agradecer a las autoridades presentes, especialmente los decanos, la decana Heidi de Ciencias Sociales y otras autoridades, los estudiantes y, claro, el equipo de investigación que nos acompaña el día de hoy. Voy a hacer muy brevemente una pequeña presentación de lo que involucra dentro del proyecto, los objetivos, cuál es el equipo de investigación y cuál es el alcance, cuáles son las actividades que vamos a desarrollar. Y después ahí vamos a empezar con las charlas especiales de todo el equipo nacional de la investigación. Bueno, antes de presentar sobre el alcance del proyecto, quiero hablar un poquito de los antecedentes del vínculo, de dónde sale toda la idea y todo. En este sentido, quiero compartir que la Universidad Católica de Maule ya tiene un convenio específico de cooperación internacional firmado con Universidad Federal de Santa Catarina dentro de su cátedra de UNESCO sobre el tema de multilingüismo. Y esta cátedra se dirige el profesor Dr. Gilvan Muller de Oliveira. Y la idea del proyecto nace desde esa cátedra. La cátedra, yo también soy responsable desde UCM como parte de cátedra, ¿no? Yo soy la responsable de la cátedra desde la universidad. El objetivo general del proyecto, como ustedes saben, es un proyecto no de investigación, sino de vinculación. Cabe mencionar que la idea es establecer y fortalecer la red sobre la temática. En este sentido, el objetivo de la presente propuesta es establecer y fortalecer una red interdisciplinaria de investigadores de LANPOL. LANPOL viene de sigla Language Policy, como ustedes saben, ¿no? En inglés, LAN es language y POL es política, ¿no? Policy. LANPOL entre instituciones regionales de Chile e internacionales para generar conocimiento actualizado acerca de los diferentes contextos del multilingüismo, las políticas lingüísticas que se proyectan en ellos y sus implicaciones para el desarrollo sostenible de los ciudadanos y las comunidades lingüísticas en Chile. Dentro del objetivo hemos dividido en varios objetivos específicos. Hay 4 objetivos específicos. Por ejemplo, el primer objetivo tiene que ver con indagar sobre el tema de diferentes contextos de multilingüismo. El segundo objetivo tiene que ver con la formación de red de intercambio de ideas. El tercer objetivo tiene que ver con fortalecimiento de las capacidades científicas y el último objetivo tiene que ver con la contribución al desarrollo de recursos humanos. Ahora, el equipo es bastante interdisciplinar y multidisciplinar y viene de 4 países. Dentro del contexto nacional tenemos la Universidad Católica de Maule como la institución principal y la Universidad de la Frontera con la participación de la doctora Lucia Uvilla, quien nos acompaña el día de hoy, el profesor doctor José Gabriel de la Universidad de Biobío también nos acompaña. Son 3 universidades nacionales y tenemos 3 universidades extranjeras. De Argentina tenemos Universidad Nacional de Mar de Plata con la participación de la profesora Claudia, Universidad Federal de Santa Catarina con la participación de Gilvan Muller y 2 universidades de la India, Universidad Jawaharlal Nehru y Universidad Voxen. Ahora, la inclusión de la Universidad Voxen es un hecho muy reciente y tengo que difundir a mi equipo también, que el doctor Anik Nandi de la Universidad Voxen también va a ser parte del equipo. Aquí aparecen los nombres. Como les mencioné, la institución principal es UCM, instituciones nacionales asociadas son UFRO y UBioBio, extranjeras, Santa Catarina de Brasil, Jawaharlal Nehru de la India, Universidad Nacional de Mar del Plata de Argentina. No incluye el nombre de Dr. ANID, que recién también ha incorporado dentro de la red. Ahora, dentro de la modalidad de vinculación, como permite y que hemos postulado dentro del proyecto, hay dos modalidades. ANID nos permite 4 modalidades, A, B, C, D. Hemos postulado la presente propuesta dentro de 2 modalidades, que es la modalidad A y la modalidad C. En la modalidad A, ahí se involucra la pasantía de los investigadores involucrados, y en la modalidad C son las realizaciones de seminarios, talleres, conferencias bilaterales y multilaterales. Y dentro de la primera modalidad tenemos 2 actividades de pasantía, y yo quiero agradecer al profesor Andrew también, quien es director de Educación en Consorcio, quien nos ha ayudado mucho. Y aparte de eso tenemos programado la pasantía de la doctora candidata al doctorado, María Petronila Rodríguez, quien va a viajar este domingo a Brasil bajo el proyecto de FOVI. La segunda pasantía es programada es del investigador responsable, en este caso yo. Yo voy a ir a la India en finales de diciembre. Dentro de modalidad C, tenemos 3 actividades programadas. La primera actividad es el seminario de apertura, que ya tenemos el día de hoy. La segunda actividad está programada en el mes de junio, con la visita de 2 pares internacionales. Y la última actividad es el seminario de cierre, que se programa en el mes de noviembre, con la visita de otra investigadora extranjera. Finalmente, yo quiero agradecer, claro, a ANID por su financiamiento, a la VRIP, a través de la Dirección de Investigación, que siempre nos ha ayudado en todas las actividades académicas, a la Facultad de Educación, que el decano siempre nos ha ayudado en todas las actividades, y las otras universidades extranjeras y nacionales que nos acompañan dentro del proyecto. Gracias.
Comenzando con la primera charla del seminario titulada Multilingüismo y Género, sobre identidad, ciudadanía y otras intersecciones, invitamos a la doctora Mariana Lázaro Salazar, académica de la Universidad Católica del Maule y co-investigadora del proyecto FOVI.
Is it on? Hola. Okay, hello everyone. This seminar is supposed to be in English, so I think we start right now. Okay, so I'm going to talk about multilingualism and gender. I'll talk about things such as identity, citizenship, and other intersections of studies of multilingualism and gender. So our agenda for today is to provide some working definitions, so you need to know where we come from in terms of gender and multilingualism. Then to give you an overview of the studies of multilingualism, gender from an international perspective, to explore relevant intersections, and then briefly analyze the state of the art for the Chilean context, to then suggest future steps for both research and public policy. So, some initial definitions, I'm sorry. You need to know where we come from in terms of multilingualism and what we mean by it, because there are different definitions as well as for gender. So for multilingualism, I'll read it in case you can't read it from at the back. Language, as I said, we understand multilingualism as a set of resources which circulate in unequal ways in social networks and discursive spaces, and whose meaning and value are socially constructed within the constraints of social organization processes and the specific historical conditions. So this is what we mean by multilingualism in the context of this study. This is at least what I think we mean. And then gender, what I mean by gender, I follow Butler's work on performativity and performative acts. So I understand gender as a socially constructed, negotiated, and performed through language, a category of the self that is constructed and not given by nature, and that's how we differ or differentiate gender from sexuality. So in terms of multilingual matters, we live in a very globalized world. As Liliana was saying, multilingualism has become a powerful fact of life worldwide, even if we don't have it maybe in this country because it's not highly multilingual. When we go out of the country, when we leave the country, most countries around the world are really multilingual, and so it's become a fact of life. Multilingualism is vital to developing businesses, academic networking, and growing personally, socially, and economically as well. So it helps you move up the economic ladder, the work scale as well. And gender plays a vital role as a mediator of these multilingual matters. That is, gender is a mediator, that is, it changes the perceptions of multilingual matters. And the first intersection that we will explore is language learning. So for many decades now, language learning research has been saying gender matters when it comes to learning a language. And you know that most of you are part of the English program, right? At the university. So when we look at SLA, second language acquisition, and English as a foreign language studies, we know that gender plays a huge, vital role in how we learn a language, the perceptions we have of a language, the attitudes we have towards languages, and so on. So these are some of the findings that we have for these studies. Okay, so when we look at studies that deal with multiculturalism and gender, we find that there's a substantial impact on gender on the perceptions of language use, language ideology, and language preference. So depending on whether we're looking at females or males, they prefer different languages, they prefer to use it differently, and they have different ideologies that guide their use of the language. Now, the effect of multilingualism on individuals and personality traits has been studied as well. So we are looking at, for example, how multilinguals have more or less tolerance to ambiguity of life. Okay, so being ambiguous, not knowing something, not knowing what will happen. So how does that, or how is that determined by multilingualism or the level of multilingualism and their gender? Okay, these are some of the studies that are run or that have been done in this regard, and they also studied cognitive consequences of multilingualism. So apparently, if you speak more, or the more languages you speak, the more cognitive competent you are in many aspects that are looked at from a psychological point of view. Now, in terms of the effects of multilingualism on individuals and personality, as I was saying, some of the studies link multilingualism with cognitive empathy, for example, with open-mindedness, social initiative, flexibility, and emotional stability. Most of these studies have found that women are more prone to these characteristics, and they are more open to different languages. They are more social initiative to learning other languages, and so on. Multilingualism and gender is an important predictor of the tolerance of ambiguity, and females usually, as I was saying, score higher than males in terms of multilingualism and their attitudes towards language. Now, we also have language attitudes as a focus of study in this area as well. And so I put in here an example from Hong Kong where females were found to consistently be more positive towards non-native languages, but male students were more positively inclined to the vernacular languages. And this is correlated in many, many languages and many countries around the world. Okay, so females are usually more positive towards more standard variations of the language or varieties of the language, whereas males are more inclined to the vernacular. We also have studies towards, or studies that look at attitudes towards linguistic variation and not language variation, okay? Linguistic variation is the variation within the same language as well, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but for now, these studies show that gender is a predictor of ethnocentrism, regardless of the level of multilingualism. So usually they have found that men are more ethnocentric than women, for example. Okay? Females are inclined toward prestigious language varieties and norms, so they are the keepers of the standard forms. They are the gatekeepers of them, and females are more motivated to learn a second language or a third language and so on. We also have studies looking at the desirability of developing multilingual competence, and again, it is women who score higher than men usually, okay? But they all do it even when looking at men, they all want to learn second languages and third languages and so on, or become multilingual, because of the prospects of educational growth and also economic growth, and there's no differentiation. The second intersection that I will look into is identity. So identity studies have also dealt with the intersections between multilingualism and gender. There's a strong connection between language choice and social identity. So depending on what you want to show, or how you want to show yourself, it's the language that you will choose and the variety of the language, okay? So living in several languages encompasses constructing yourself differently in each language. You're a different person when you speak another language, okay? So you become another self. And it's not that you're not your true self or that you're pretending or something, but you do take up different norms and different perceptions of what that language entails. These studies talk about multilingual self. Okay, so they say that because we need to construct ourselves differently when you speak another language, then you need to have a different self, and it's called a multilingual self. The language choice embodies the social and cultural beliefs, which are in turn related to people's identity. So it's not just the language. When you decide to speak a language, you probably also align with the norms, the cultural norms of that language. Okay, so you think of a country, usually you think of a kind of people that speak that language, and you want to, at some stage, more or less emulate those cultural beliefs and social beliefs. And so some people talk about, because of this, some people talk about the coexistence of multiple possible selves that are related to speakers' alignment with multiple cultures, and so they talk about multicultural selves. So this is more or less what the literature is talking about in terms of these intersections, okay? And these studies look at the impact of gender ideologies in the process of identity construction of multilingual women, for example, okay? Now, they also studied the motivational self, looking at the ideal self. So when you learn a language, you have an ideal self. You want to develop yourself, and you work towards being something else. Okay, so you have an ideal self that entails language competence that you want to attain, and also the possible selves that you want to portray through that language, through that use of language. In this case, we have some studies that report that male and female participants, ideal L3, so we're talking about a third language rather than first or second, self-concepts differ significantly in terms of motivational intensity. So women are usually more motivated to learn a third language. Female participants are more motivated to be multilinguals, and they also exhibit higher levels of intrinsic engagement, that is, intrinsic motivation, as well as stronger mental imagery about future multilingual selves. So apparently women tend to imagine themselves more in situations in which they are speaking a different language than men, okay, according to these studies. We also talk about in these studies about gendered identities. So we have all sorts of identities, multilingual identities, right, and gendered ones, obviously. Now, in this case, we look at gender performativity in the Zulu culture. I chose this study as an example. Using English helps, in this case, in the Zulu culture. This was done in this study was done in South Africa. Using English helps young men to construct a masculine identity which prioritizes modernity, upward social mobility, and success in the job market. Whereas for women, okay, they score higher when it comes to the retention of Zulu constructs as a more traditionalist feminine identity, okay, typically associated with the home and the maintenance of the Zulu culture. So again, they are the gatekeepers of the traditional. Now, there are other underlying intersections here that we don't have time to explore, but it's the cultural and gender identities, how they intertwine and how they are interconnected. The case of Chile. So to begin looking at Chile, we need to look at the Latin American context, okay, and see what's been done there, and then to bring it down to Chile. Unfortunately, not much has been done in terms of multilingualism and gender. There's been a lot of studies on multilingualism, but not looking specifically at the role of gender in multilingualism. I could only find 3 studies that meet the criteria, and they look at gender identity and multilingualism in writing of female authorship. So they look at novels and they see how they've been translated, for example. The second study is on personal and gendered experiences of multilingual translators and writers. So again, not looking at real, natural data, but just looking at books and how people translate them. And then another study on multilingualism, new technologies, and inclusion, looking at how people from different countries, from different languages are included or are part of communities through the new technologies. Okay, in Chile, the literature is still, or is even more scarce than in the case of Latin America. There's an interesting, very interesting thesis, PhD thesis in Durham, the UK, looking at multilingualism in Chile, and it's been done fairly recently. And I like this quote because this is how she begins the thesis, to say that for the most part, literature on intercultural education has forced, in Chile, right, has focused on the implications of intercultural policy on students' ethnicity, failing to acknowledge the lived experiences between girls and boys and the different ways with that ethnicity, class, and gender intersect with the Chilean education system. This is, she says, the first study that looks into gender as the role of gender in multilingual studies in Chile. So the few studies that I like to highlight are these 3 in terms of, again, having gender as the focus of study and not just mentioning gender as one of the aspects of social demographic aspects of the research. And the first one is on migrants writing in Spanish as an L2. So they are looking at people from other nationalities and writing in Spanish when Spanish in Chile is their second language. Then also on forced acculturative experience of indigenous minorities and its differentiation of gender roles. So how people have to adjust, and these indigenous minorities need to speak Spanish and their gender roles within that. And then the thesis that I was talking about, our side thesis, who argues that Will's intercultural education initially grew out of the indigenous desires for self-determination. It has been co-opted as a state tool that continues to perform a symbolic violence against Mapuche girls. So these girls are more discriminated than men when they speak the language, their own language. What are the implications of this research? So summing up and coming to some conclusions. By showing that girls are often, or women are often, more inclined to being multilingual and to having these ideal selves and so on, we do not mean to construct a gender supremacy. We're just showing what's there in the literature, okay, over these multilingual matters. However, we do have, and some studies do show, that because it is women who are trying to keep the standard forms, who are more open to languages and have more positive attitudes towards language and towards learning different languages and so on, it is women who have more accommodating attitudes to other languages. And so it is more likely that women will be pushing forward towards a higher degree of multilingualism worldwide. So whenever we think of public policy, then this is an issue that we need to take into account in order to write these public policies. It is also necessary to consider or to see a focus of language policies on valuing and favoring the use of multiple languages in male-dominated contexts to strengthen the impact in society. If men are not as highly motivated to speak different languages, then we need to boost that and to give an added value so that it becomes also important for them. Future education and work job prospects are for both genders important, and we need to take this into account as well. So this is what motivates multilingualism around the world. Social status and power relations, we need to know that depending on the language that you choose, you're choosing certain power over others. And we were speaking about English, for example, a while ago. Okay, so we are fixed on learning English and English as a language of power. Okay, we need to be aware that that's what we're doing when we choose a second, third, and so on language, and that it will give you social status, and which language does that and which language doesn't, and how we can revitalize or how we can boost the languages that don't have that kind of prestige. Undergoing different processes of language globalization, we need to know that women and men undergo different processes. And this has to be taken into account if we want to move forward in terms of multilingualism and proposing policies, especially in Chile. We also need to think about social inclusion and cross-cultural adaptation. So increased multilingualism and interculturalism decrease ethnocentrism and increases openness towards other cultures and consequently ethnic, linguistic, religious tolerance. So multilingualism and multiculturalism is a positive thing for society, and we need to, again, boost that and encourage that. The development of intercultural sensitivity is necessary to avoid cultural superiority, stereotypes, and prejudice. So we need to also work on our cultural empathy. These authors say that if we work on this, then we will probably come up with, or this will result in multi-competent citizens who don't just speak the language, but they know the norms of the other culture, they know how to behave in that language, and that becomes multi-competent. If we do that, then we will attain global citizenship. Only then we will attain global citizenship. And international mobility and transnational migration will be easier, okay, in terms of adaptation and inclusion. And linguistic and cultural transmission will also lead to cultural legacy. Okay, so if we value the languages that we speak, whether it's the dominating languages or not, or the minority ones, we will be in a place to share it with as part of our cultural legacy. So what are the future steps? rounding up now. Internationalization in education is the main focus of this research worldwide. So this is where we're headed, and this is where we should be going, all of us. Multiculturalism and multilingualism are the important challenges of internationalization in general. So we will not get this or attain this if we don't work on the value of multilingualism and multiculturalism. Educational policies and practices, in particular in Chile, favor assimilation rather than inclusion. And this is something that is very true, and whether the language policy is a good one or not, what actually happens in practice is that we are favoring assimilation. That is, people who come and don't speak the language here, they have to. And we are not looking at learning the language of that speaker in Chile, okay? So we are not including them. We want them to assimilate. We want them to adapt to our cultural system. Ideological transitioning from we need to do an ideological transitioning from world Englishes, which is obsolete already, okay, to look into panlingual globalization. That is a globalization that includes all languages, that is regarding of all languages and not just the world Englishes, okay? To boost the use of low-density languages to encourage multilingualism. So it's not just the high-density languages, those languages that are spoken by many or by most, but those low-density or minority languages as well. And then we need to take an intersectional approach to the study of multilingualism. We cannot deny that gender has a role to play, and if we study multilingualism in isolation, then we will not get to the bottom of the things, okay, to the conclusion. So we need to make gender, and some other authors recommend some other social demographic criteria part of multilingual studies. And to finish, to date, most language policies privilege assimilation rather than multilingualism because of the social and political challenges that they have to face for managing the diversities of languages. They need translators, they need interpreters. You know, it's a lot to work on, but it needs to be done. To value multilingualism as a symbolic or cultural capital is one of the ways in which we can attain that. Okay, so looking at Bourdieu, I have no time to expand on this, but it's very interesting theory, so I'm giving you keywords to look at and relate to these topics. Now, the European Union official documents and the Parliament are probably one of the most welcoming places for multiculturalism and multilingualism. However, if you read those documents, and I did read an interesting paper written by a lawyer, they only include official and co-official, what they call co-official languages, but they never include minority languages in the European Union, okay? So they are leaving these minority languages as at a disadvantage. So seeing multilingualism as language diversity, but also seeing multilingualism as the diversity of linguistic varieties. So it's not just different languages, but it may be the same language in a different variety that we also need to value as part of multilingualism. And this, however, so looking at this, if we included official and co-official languages in linguistic policies or in other policies in Chile, it is a good start because we don't have it, okay? I recommend, as a last slide here, I recommend you go and check out this issue. It was just published like 2 days ago. It came out in the International Journal of Bilingual Education and Bilingualism. And Milani, he's a strong defendant of gender and sexuality. He actually edits one of these journals, a very prestigious journals. And they hope to counter the downplaying, invisibilization, and or erasure of gender and sexuality by seeking to bring these two axes of social differentiation more to the center of mainstream multilingualism research, strongly criticizing heteronormativity in multilingual matters. I think this is a good way to start. This is one of the few studies in the last decade that look into the role of gender in multilingual matters. To finish, I included it is a very brief selection of references of the presentation that I did today. And we also want to say that we adhere to the principles of open science with this project through the project Ciencia Abierta Colmena Científica that is led by the Director of Research in our university. Thank you very much.
Agradecemos a la doctora Mariana Lazaro Salazar por su exposición. Continuando con el programa, invitamos al doctor Andrew Philomin-Raj, académico de la Universidad Católica del Maule e investigador asociado nacional del proyecto FOVI, con su charla Multilingüismo e Internacionalización, navegando por las complejidades.
Good morning, everybody. Before I could start, I just wanted to thank very especially my colleagues from the Department of Languages. Thank you very much. And also all the students who are here, the two fourth and fifth year students who are here. Thank you very much for joining us. And a special word of thanks also for the teachers who are in the system, who had been part of this Chile-Canada project, which was part of the university outreach project with Jorge Burgos and myself. We have teachers from the system, Ms. Maria Jose, who's joining us, and Ms. Rosillo. Thank you very much. This is indeed encouraging, and we also thank Professor Ranjiva for all the opportunities that we are able to work with and contribute. And today, Ms. Mariana Lazaro already highlighted a couple of things, and today my topic that I would love to share is on multilingualism and internationalization, navigating the complexities. FOVI's project is all about outreach and internationalization and networking, and that's the reason that we have people from India, we have people from Brazil, from Argentina. As an overview, multilingualism and internationalization have become integral components of higher education institutions worldwide, shaping the academic landscape and preparing students for success in a globalized world. The purpose of this present study was to explore the importance on implications of multilingualism and internationalization, especially in higher education. The study is qualitative and was carried out through the snowball research technique. The results highlighted the multifaceted benefits and the positive contribution of multilingualism in internationalization, fostering especially three areas. There are many, but for this study we have limited only to academic excellence, cultural diversity, and the development of global citizenship. The current presentation, as I said, explores the intricate relationship between multilingualism and internationalization of higher education. Multilingualism and internationalization are closely intertwined concepts, each influencing and shaping the other. On a general note, multilingualism refers to the ability of individuals, communities, or nations to use multiple languages proficiently. Probably we who come from India, we co-live with so many languages. India officially has 24 languages, and English unites us, but still we do have drama of how to make all these languages positively contributing to this national identity. The European Commission in 2007 views multilingualism as the ability of societies, institutions, groups, and individuals to engage on a regular basis with more than one language in their day-to-day lives. multilingualism is a prerequisite for any and all aspects related to internationalization. It's not only the ability to speak more than one language, has long been recognized as a crucial aspect of global communication and interaction. In an increasingly interconnected world driven by globalization and internationalization, the importance of multilingualism cannot be overstated. The coexistence of diverse languages and cultures enriches societies, fosters cooperation, and fuels economic development. In a sense, multilingualism facilitates internationalization by serving as a bridge for cross-cultural communication and understanding. What do we understand by internationalization? It involves the process of integrating and interacting with diverse cultures, economies, and societies on a global scale. Internationalization of higher education is referred to as a process of integrating an international or global dimension into the purpose, functions, or delivery of education institutions and systems. Knight, this author, has written much about internationalization, especially the contribution of multilingualism to internationalization. When we talk about internationalization of higher education, especially in universities, it has a dual role. It is the expression of international dimension in the university functions and activities, and of the international transference of university capabilities and products. The research question that helped me or that guided me in this research: how does multilingualism imply and influence in internationalization of higher educations? And what are the implications and influences of multilingualism in internationalization at higher education? In terms of the method, this is an exploratory study carried out by collecting articles related to the topic under study through a qualitative research technique called Snowball. That is, from the bibliographic reference of one article, other articles were obtained. In addition, key phrases were used in the search for information, accounting for the implications and influences of the multilingualism and internationalization in higher education. So what are the factors that came up in this study? One is about the academic excellence. The primary benefits, one of the primary benefits of multilingualism and internationalization in higher education is their contribution to academic excellence. Research by Diwale and Leeway suggests that multilingual students demonstrate enhanced cognitive abilities, linguistic proficiency, and critical thinking skills compared to their monolingual counterparts. Exposure to diverse linguistic and cultural perspectives enriches the learning environment, fostering intellectual curiosity and creativity among students, as mentioned by Norton and Tuche. Multilingualism improves educational outcomes by enhancing cognitive abilities, linguistic proficiency, and academic achievement. Studies have shown that students who receive instruction in multiple languages demonstrate greater cognitive flexibility, problem-solving skills, and academic success. This was said long back by Cummins in 2014. Multilingual education fosters language proficiency in both the native and additional languages. In Chile, we do have Spanish, but we also have Mapudungun and many other native languages which are not totally considered in the language policy. When it is both native and additional languages, students are equipped with valuable communication skills for success in a globalized world. And I'm sure today, students who are representing the School of Pedagogy would testify to this reality, being native speakers of Spanish at the same time acquiring and learning another language, though it is for profession, but somehow you position yourself in today's world. Research suggests that multilingualism confers cognitive advantages such as improved problem-solving skills, enhanced creativity, and delayed cognitive decline in old age. Bielstock underscores the cognitive benefits of multilingualism, noting that it strengthens executive functions and enhances brain plasticity, leading to superior cognitive performance. That's why we believe that starting languages at the very tender age helps people to end up in the future life as bilingual or multilingual. Additionally, internationalization initiatives such as incoming, outgoing international students or international project partnerships, student and teaching staff mobilities, and summer courses in foreign languages, international collaborations provide all participants with unique opportunities for interdisciplinary learning and research. All the structures mentioned above, organized units or exceptional strategies put together for the complex purpose of internationalization would have any chance to succeed without the intensive mandatory use of foreign languages. Taking about an international dimension added to the educational institution and process automatically and implicitly obliges us to talk about the use and the opportunity to use foreign languages. Yet another topic that came up in this research study has to do with cultural diversity. Multilingualism and internalization in higher education promote cultural diversity and intercultural understanding, essential components of comprehensive education. Studies carried out by Byram emphasize the importance of integrating cultural competence into higher education curricula, preparing students to navigate complex cultural landscapes and engage meaningfully with individuals from diverse backgrounds. Multilingual education programs, including language courses and cultural exchange activities, foster mutual respect and appreciation for different cultures, enriching the university experience for all students. Furthermore, studies by Norton and Tuhey underscore the transformative potential of cultural diversity in shaping students' identities. Exposure to diverse cultural perspectives challenges students to critically reflect on their own beliefs and assumptions, fostering intellectual growth and personal development. Expanding on the primary benefits of multilingualism in its capacity to promote cultural understanding and empathy, crucial components of well-rounded education. Research by Smith suggests that individuals proficient in multiple languages exhibit greater cultural sensitivity and appreciation for different perspectives, skills that are essential for global citizenship. And that leads us to another factor, which is titled as global citizenship. Higher education plays a crucial role in nurturing global citizenship by instilling values of social responsibility, ethical leadership, and cross-cultural empathy among students. Research by Androthi highlights the transformative potential and of internationalization, initiatives in fostering a sense of global citizenship and solidarity among students. The author argues that higher education institutions have a responsibility to prepare students to become informed, engaged, and ethically responsible global citizens. What are the challenges of being a global citizen, especially thinking from the higher education perspective? Multilingualism enhances students' ability to communicate effectively across linguistic and cultural boundaries, empowering them to participate actively in a globalized society. By embracing diversity and promoting cross-cultural dialogue, higher education institutions contribute to developing socially conscious and globally aware citizens. The inevitability of this impact of being global citizen under the perspective of multilingualism has been underlined in various ways. This study by Scott is food for thought, an idea which I would like to share. Not all universities are international, but all are subject to the same process of globalization, partly as objects, victims, even of these processes, but partly as subjects or key agents of globalization. And I conclude, multilingualism and internationalization in higher education enhance academic excellence, cultural diversity, and the development of global citizenship. Also, embracing linguistic diversity and fostering global interconnectedness, institutions can create inclusive learning environments that prepare students to thrive in an increasingly interconnected and diverse world. The insertion in today's world requires the efficient use of languages, both those that help us to build our identity and those that allow us to exchange with other nations, such as foreign languages. Few references that has been
Agradecemos la exposición del doctor Andrew Filominrach. Para continuar, invitamos a la académica de la Universidad de la Frontera e investigadora asociada nacional del proyecto FOVI, doctora Lucía Uvilla Rosales, para presentar su charla Multilingüismo y enseñanza del inglés.
Ahí está. Gracias, Ranjiva. Okay, hello everybody. Okay, well, before we start the presentation, I would like to know how many of you can speak more than one language? I assume that most of you, no, right? Yeah, how many of you can speak 3 languages? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many of you can speak 4 languages? So only here. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 5 languages? Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you very much. If we get to how many languages can you speak, Ranjiva and Andrew? 24? 10. Oh, my goodness. 6. Okay. Wow. That makes us feel like, oh, my goodness, I have so much to learn. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But we are still struggling between knowing Spanish. Can we speak Spanish? Oh, we assume that we can, right? Because that's our native language. But the thing is, how well we speak the language, okay? Well, that's another thing, okay? Well, we are struggling to speak English, okay? A little bit of English, and probably we understand a little bit of other languages, like thank you, or gracias, or de nada, etc., in some other languages, right? Okay, but the world is changing, okay? Probably after the pandemic, we realized that definitely everything is changing, okay? So the idea of being multilingual is not so crazy after all, okay? So the presentation goes in the area of multilingualism and teaching English, okay? Let's see if it works. This one, this way? Which? Over here? Yeah, okay. I'll do it the old way. Okay. Well, there's my name. My name is Lucio Villarrosales. Okay. Thank you very much. And that's another language, okay? Technological language. Okay. How well we can communicate with this new language. Okay. So, well, we know that we are talking about multilingualism, and when it probably this picture shows or illustrates very well what we mean by, okay, different children, different people with different symbols and trying to express themselves in different languages, okay? So what is this multilingualism? We already listened some definitions from other authors, okay, but here I propose another one, okay? It is the ability to speak and understand more than one language, and it means being able to communicate in different languages with proficiency. Okay, probably that's one of the key words, with proficiency, okay? It's not just to say, hola, ¿cómo estás? Muy bien, gracias, okay? It's more than that, yeah? And when we talk about proficiency, we know that we have different levels, obviously. Okay, so multilingualism is a prevalent phenomenon, definitely in today's globalized world, with significant implications. In this case, well, in many areas, but in our case, the educational system. Not only in Chile, but all over the world, okay? Probably in Chile, we haven't realized this problem so much because we all speak Spanish. We have Argentinian people who speak Spanish. We have Peruvians who speak Spanish. So we are surrounded by the Spanish community, okay? So probably we haven't even thought that much about that yet, okay? But it's a different reality in Europe. It's a different reality in Asia. Now, when it comes to teaching English, particularly in multilingual classrooms, it requires an understanding of the complex interplay that it happens between different languages and the different educational practices. So there's when teachers begin to suffer, okay? What are we going to do with this multilingual thing, okay? How are we going to work with this? Will we be able to survive to this, okay? And English often emerges as the dominant language, okay, in multilingual classrooms, influencing not only the curriculum, but also the assessment decisions and all the decisions in general. Some people may say, no, that's bad. Some people might say, yes, that's okay. But we cannot deny that the rise of English medium instruction in Europe highlighted the tension between promoting multilingualism and the supremacy of English, okay? Well, obviously in Europe, because we have many languages in a very, let's say, small place. It's not a small, but just a way to say it, okay? French, German, English, Portuguese, etc. So traditional English teaching methods with a monolingual bias have been challenged by what is called nowadays pedagogical translanguaging. Have you heard this term before? Yes? Are you familiar with this? Okay, what does it mean? Okay, it means it's a teaching approach, okay, that involves the intentional and strategic use of multiple languages in the classroom to support learning. The first time I read this, it was like, no, this is not possible. How are we going to do it, okay? Fortunately, I don't live in Europe, so I'm not suffering with this situation, okay? But still, the more I read it, the more difficult for me to get it is. But okay, probably it is possible. Now, the concept of pedagogical translanguaging recognizes learners as emergent multilinguals who can navigate in different languages depending on the social context. I'm going to tell you a personal experience, okay? I have a friend. She is Peruvian. She was raised in Chile. She traveled to Australia, and there she met a boy. She got married with this guy. This guy was from Germany. They have a child who was adopted, and he was from Chile. And they spoke to the baby in English, in German, in Spanish, and in French. The first time I listened that, I said to my friend, no, don't do that. What are you doing? That's crazy. How can you do that with a poor guy? Okay? Speaking to them in 4 different languages. Well, now they're living in Europe, and this baby is already 15 years old, and probably he speaks 6 languages. Okay, so all my theories about don't mixture the languages and everything went down. Okay, so Andrew knows that much better than I do. Okay, so it aims to make the best of student linguistic repertoires and promote meaningful communication and understanding by moving fluently between different languages and during the instruction process. Okay, obviously the teacher must be competent in all the languages. Yeah. So plurilingual awareness, another key concept here, is crucial for teachers to train learners to become multilingual citizens. Okay, what is this about? It is an understanding that is very valuable to have an individual who can communicate in different languages and a community who can communicate in different languages. It involves recognizing this dynamic nature of language use and the ability to navigate between these languages, but efficiently, again, proficiently. Be careful with this. It's crucial for teachers to train learners to become multilingual citizens. That's what the studies say nowadays. So studies have also shown that multilingual teachers, okay, they possess higher level of plurilingual awareness, which influences their teaching practices. Can any of you consider himself or herself a multilingual teacher? I can't. Yeah, I'm not in that situation. Okay, probably in other countries, yes. Okay, so these are the special guys who possess higher levels of plurilingual awareness. Okay, so we need to invite one of those teachers to our project. Okay, teachers who can recognize the potential benefits of multilingualism in language learning, but often they lack the systematic approach to make the best of it in the classroom. Okay, yes, as teachers of a second language, we do recognize that, but we still don't know how to do it. So there is a need of collaboration across languages in order to enhance language learning, but unfortunately it hasn't been widely practiced. So we have a lot of tasks to do here. Okay, now what happens in the EFL context or area? EFL teachers' views on teaching multilingual students changes from teacher to teacher, okay? Some of them recognize the benefits and others probably don't even care about that. Now, in our society, in Chile, probably, again, we don't have that situation, but we have multilingual context, okay? We have students from Venezuela, we have students from Colombia, we have students from Haiti, from Argentina, from Chile, etc. Okay, it's not a multilingual scenario, but it's a multilingual context. And Mariana was using the term multilingual, no, multi-competent, no? So we need students and we need teachers who make the best of multi-competence, okay? How we can understand the other's culture. Though, however, as I said before, there is a need for greater awareness and utilization of multilingual learners' linguistic resources, okay? So they see the word in a different way, they learn about things in a different way, and this is something that we teachers need to learn more. A multilingual approach to teaching English as a second or foreign language can definitely optimize learning. And you mentioned some of the advantages of this by considering a student's linguistic experiences, the relationship between different languages. Okay, how do they see the world? Okay, what is the way they learn mathematics, for example? What is the way they learn about the world in general? So teachers in multilingual contexts require a specific orientations, okay? And this is where we connect probably this project with language policies, okay? How the Ministry of Education can give us the tools for explaining the teachers what are the specific orientation, the specific knowledge, the specific skills that the teachers need in order to be linguistically responsive to their students. So teacher education programs, in this case, not only from this university, from all the universities, need to start to consider or incorporate some frameworks that prepares the teachers to address the needs of multilingual learners. Are we working on this? It's not something that you need to answer, but it's something that we need to ask ourselves, okay? As a program of teaching English as a second language, as a program of pedagogía en español, as a program of biología, is that something that we incorporate in our programs? Is that the competence what we have even think about? So this is something that, okay, there are many things that we need to do here. So multilingual contexts challenge traditional views of language education and necessitate diverse teaching forms and considerations. Some years ago, there was a big discussion about how teachers are going to teach in multi-level classes. I don't know if you remember that, okay? ¿Qué pasa con los profesores que enseñan en cursos que tienen diferentes niveles? What do they do? How do they do it? Okay, so now it's not only about classes or courses that have different levels, but it's about what about classes or courses that have students from different places. So questions about language, teaching method, student-teacher relationship, and political aspects of multilingual context are central to language teaching. And this is not something that I say, it's something that investigations, new research are saying. Okay, we need to think, when I say we, I'm thinking about teachers who prepare programs for new teachers, okay, formadores de formadores, okay. Those are the questions that we should be doing to ourselves when we think about the new programs. Las renovaciones curriculares, los cursos que vamos a dar, how are we going to include this in our programs? So embracing multilingualism in English teaching can definitely enrich all the educational experience and prepare the students better for this globalized world, okay? Now with technology it's easier, but do they still have the competence? We still need to think about competence. Do they still have the competence to participate in this multilingual world? There is a need for teachers, and this is what I was saying before, there is a need for teacher education programs to adapt and promote multilingual pedagogies. And for teachers to develop this plurilingual awareness that I was talking before. Okay, so again, this is something that we need to think a lot about in our new programs, in our renovaciones curriculares. ¿Qué vamos a hacer? ¿Cómo las vamos a considerar? Las vamos a considerar. So lots of questions that appear here. Okay, this is the beginning of something that we need to start reading a lot and discussing a lot and questioning a lot, okay? So this is my presentation is just for you to think about a lot of things in the future, okay? So thank you very much. Arigato.
Agradecemos a la doctora Lucía Ovilla Rosales. Nuestro siguiente expositor es el doctor José Gabriel Brauchi, académico de la Universidad del Biobío e investigador asociado nacional del proyecto FOVI, quien nos presenta su charla denominada Programas de EFL para profesores de idiomas hacia el fomento de las competencias comunicativas interculturales en universidades estatales.
So, morning everybody. The previous speakers addressed issues such as the understanding of multilingualism and the intersection with gender selves. The second speaker addressed the issue of turning a monolingual, national-based higher education into a much more, say, the internationalized school system. And the third speaker addressed the issues of turning EFL students into the understanding of what is it to work in a, say, no more monolingual cultural setting, but a much more culturally diverse setting. Yeah, and my work in progress goes in the same direction, but it examines what are we doing so far within the initial teaching training program, specifically in the state or public network universities. And it's entitled State Universities EFL Teacher Education Programs Towards Fostering Intercultural Communication Skills. The talk examines briefly the extent to which the profiles, perfiles de egreso, of EFL teacher education BA programs or EFL primary high school teacher education certificate programs that we will see later, offered by 15 public universities nationwide within what we call the Universidad del Estado de Chile, strengthen intercultural education. By examining the EFL teacher education BA programs, profiles, and curricula, findings contribute to show how core intercultural communication skills courses are foster trainees progressive understanding of intercultural competence skills and determine the extent to which such skills are addressed throughout the teacher training. Yet, EFL teacher education program graduates remain unable to develop English intercultural communication skills. Early findings or late findings show that based on the nationally standardized Evaluación Nacional Diagnóstica exam shows that students are not ready, and because they do not reach that, quote, comprende la importancia de conocer e integrar la diversidad de su propia cultura y la de sus comunidades angloparlantes u otras a las cuales se accede por medio del inglés al contextualizar el proceso de enseñanza-aprendizaje de este idioma. Yeah? And this is a picture nationwide. Studies on language policy and economy show that languages affect economy, or said otherwise, there is an impact on languages on economy performance. As Susama 2020 shows, quote, economics plays important role in language policy as well as in language planning. Also, it helps to understand how economic factors affect the choice of languages, such as international trade's impact on the existence of particular languages and the fall of others, end of quote. Thus, the adopted English language policy was meant to, quote, strengthen the proficiencies of the Chilean population into the English language in order to accelerate the integration of Chile into a global world and therefore improve our competitiveness, end of quote. This is from the National English Strategy or English Policy 2014-2030. But yet, language learners and users are much more complex as they ultimately develop intercultural communicative skills while learning and using the language, right? While public schools or state schools' mission, Universidad del Estado, is to contribute, quote, al fortalecimiento de la democracia, al desarrollo sustentable integral del país y al progreso de la sociedad en las diversas áreas del conocimiento y dominios de la cultura, by enhancing todas aquellas políticas, planes y programas que propendan al desarrollo cultural, social, territorial, artístico, científico, tecnológico, económico y sustentable del país a nivel nacional y regional con una perspectiva intercultural, end of quote, EFL teaching programs should foster not only the awareness of what culture embraces, meaning the talent to evaluate different viewpoints and aptitudes to read, or the aptitude, excuse me, to read the cultural context and to avoid bias related to others' identities, gender, class, religious, political, and a variety of identities, end of quote. But also develop future languages teachers, intercultural communication skills, or intercultural sensitivity of foreign languages learners. The public school systems, Consorcio Universidad del Estado, today there are 15 EFL Teacher Education BA or EFL Primary High School Teacher Education Certificate programs offered nationwide. Some of them, 6, are named Pedagogía en Educación en Inglés, One is pedagogía en inglés para enseñanza preescolar básica y media. You can already imagine what it means to guarantee that you're training both preschoolers, primary school and high schools in a 4 or 5 year teaching training. Pedagogía en inglés para educación básica y media, one school. Pedagogía en inglés para enseñanza básica y media, two programs. Pedagogía en educación media en inglés, 2 programs. Licenciatura en educación y pedagogía en inglés, 1 program. Licenciatura en educación, convención en inglés y pedagogía en inglés, 1 program. And pedagogía de educación media en asignaturas científico-humanística, convención en inglés. This is a very singular initial teaching training program. I don't go over into detail because I will present in preliminary findings, but this is very singular. In an attempt to answer the question, what culture or cultural rational approaches are being used to address the intercultural communication skills by the 15 nationwide programs, 9 EFL teacher education programs or EFL primary high school teacher education certificate programs address core intercultural communication skills courses through the 4 to 5 year training. Pedagogía en inglés para educación básica y media. Have you noticed I'm not identifying the schools but giving the names of the school? They address through their curriculum estudios culturales, first term, estudios culturales, second term. Pedagogía en inglés, historia y cultura de los pueblos de habla inglesa, second term. Historia y cultura de los pueblos de habla inglesa, third term. Licenciatura en educación, convención en inglés, pedagogía en inglés, civilización y cultura de los pueblos de habla inglesa, first term. Civilización y cultura de los pueblos de habla inglesa, 2. Meaning only 9 schools among the 15 school programs. Pedagogía en inglés para enseñanza básica y media, competencia intercultural, second term. Cultura de los pueblos de habla inglesa, third term. Pedagogía en educación media en inglés, aprendizaje en inglés a través de los estudios culturales, third term. Aprendizaje en inglés a través de estudios culturales, second term. Pedagogía en inglés, cultura y civilización anglosajona, 1, second term. Cultura y civilización anglosajona, 2, third term. Pedagogía en inglés, cultura de los países de habla inglesa, second term. Cultura de los países de habla inglesa, 2, third term. Some of the courses are very, similar in terms of their names and how they are positioned within the curriculum, first, second, and third terms. And finally, pedagogía en inglés para enseñanza básica y media, cultura de los pueblos de habla inglesa, third term. So 15 school programs offer nationwide. We're selecting by trying to identify what are the schools that offer courses related to that cultural rationale. And finally, we identify 9 among the 15 already a set of schools. And this is what they offer. And by addressing the question or answering the question, what are conceptual and pedagogical approaches of intercultural communication skills offered by EFL teacher education programs? 4 EFL teacher education programs, EFL primary high school teacher education certificate programs, address core intercultural skills in their profiles among the 15. Pedagogía en inglés para la enseñanza preescolar y básica, quote, educador que establezca puentes de comunicación internacional en un escenario globalizado, que promueva el respeto por la diversidad lingüística y cultural, que incentiva la integración humana fomentando el aprendizaje de la lengua extranjera, el respeto por los valores, actitudes, creencias y costumbres diferentes a las propias. Another school program, pedagogía en inglés para educación básica y media, posee un alto compromiso ético y social desempeñándose en entidades educativas públicas y privadas, actuando conforme a una visión de desarrollo sostenible en concordancia con la globalización del mundo actual. Another school program, pedagogía en inglés, entiende el proceso de aprendizaje y enseñanza de idiomas como una práctica social, proponiendo acciones innovadoras, colaborativas y actualizadas, ajustándose a las necesidades socioculturales dinámicas del contexto chileno. Probably that teaching school program is anticipating turning from a monolingual setting to a much more diverse cultural setting as a school classroom are turning out today due to local and international migration mostly. And finally, pedagogía en inglés es un profesional capacitado para responder a los requerimientos de los nuevos paradigmas educacionales, desarrolla progresivamente las competencias lingüísticas y comunicativas de sus estudiantes en un marco de valoración y respeto a la diversidad. So if we sum up all the early findings from this work in progress, which is a qualitative, descriptive, interpretive study, which is examining the extent to which school initial teaching training, EFL initial teaching training programs or equivalent programs are addressing core conceptual understanding of what's intercultural, or if we turn that term into a more, say, updated term, multilingualism, we find this. Along with the findings, we got the early findings from the nationally standardized exam, Evaluación Nacional Diagnóstica, that all say that late students in their fourth school program or training should take. Findings show that they're not ready because they still not get that the average rate is or rate from 51 to 49 mostly. This is where we are. Thank you. So the question to be answered finally is the extent to which. Thank you.
You can read the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. To what extent do EFL teacher education BA, EFL primary school teacher education certificate programs strengthen intercultural education? Findings will show. Thank you. And then I chair the
Agradecemos al doctor José Gabriel Braunchi. Por último, invitamos al académico UCM e investigador responsable del proyecto FOVI, Dr. Ranjiva Ranjan, a presentar su charla Situar el multilingualismo en el contexto chileno, un panorama crítico.
Hello. Yes. Yeah. Good morning to everyone. I mean, this is the last presentation, and I think you must be trying to yes, I know that the presentation of all the research team has been excellent, and they have bombarded us with so much of theoretical knowledge, so much of theoretical implications of the term of multilingualism and what consists in the language policy, because there are two themes which are very important in our project. The one, as have been talked about by everyone, multilingualism, and the second theme deals with language policy. So our project is basically to see from different angles how can we foment this idea of multilingualism, and what is the relation of this multilingualism with the policy at the government level, language policy. And there are a lot of theoretical knowledge already available and given by our experts. I will be very brief in my presentation. I will, as my topic you can see, I will try to situate, I mean, in a way, contextualizar, as you say, context. How I will put in the context of multilingualism within Chile. So for that purpose, what I have done is, briefly, I have divided in three parts my presentation. In the first part, what I will try to do to see what is the geographical location, and how this, you must be knowing, it's a tri-continental country, and we have a triangular setup within Chile. And then looking at what are the indigenous compositions in Chile, especially giving a little more emphasis on the identity of Mapuche, which is very important worldwide. and what are the indigenous law and this ILO 169. Second part, a little bit of terms of language policy that the present constitution of Chile doesn't address. The second one, very important, again, this bilingual intercultural education program, as we say, Programa Intercultural Bilingüe, no, Intercultural Bilingüe, and then the two frames of English Abre Puerta. These all are to present you, to give you a landscape of what exactly is happening in terms of managing languages within the Chilean territory, okay? So English Abre Puerta, which was there in 2004, and then another academy to see the purity of language, in my sense, which is Academia Chilena de la Lengua, which sees that whether what should be the use of how the Spanish can be preserved and can be purified. So for me, that is again to put in the term of no purity of language within the context. In the third part, if time permits, briefly about the migration and how it again deals with the language no changes and all. Ending with the current socio-political scenario and conclusion. Well, I will skip this because already a lot have been spoken, so I won't go. But just to food for thought for you, just to think about how multilingualism can be defined. There are two perspectives can be. We can see the multilingualism through the prism of individual multilingualism or through the societal. So basically, whether you are a multilingual as a person or you see the society as multilingual. For example, many of the earlier speakers, you guys already know, I'm from India, and in India, as Dr. Professor Andrew already informed, we have 22 Indian languages as per constitution. That means cada región habla su propia lengua. Región de Maule habla propia, Nueble. So there is so much of varieties how to give importance to each language. So through the legal normative thing, we will say like that. They have every language has been given status in the constitution, which is not happening in Chile. So this you can just food for thought. Okay. Now starting with my presentation, you know, Chile is a tri-continental country. You know that, right? What are the continents? Antarctica. Oh, first one is Antarctica, where there is a lot of problem because of signing of treaty. You know that, right? Because outside world doesn't, they question it. So first one is the South American continent, which we are part. The second is Oceania, lying in the Isla de Pascua and all the islands. And the third one is the Antarctica. So this gives a triangular, tri-continental, I will say, geographical identity to Chile. Now, apart from that, apart from that, what happens in the triangular setup in north, you have a region, Atacama, that region, you have a set of languages, indigenous languages there. You have another set of languages headed by Mapudungun in south, and you have one set of language in Rapa Nui, in Isla de Pascua. So this kind of setup also give three types of identities, and I have in my presentation tried to give a triangular setup to this in the Chilean context. So Chile is a tri-continental country. At the same time, it has a triangular setup with regard to indigenous languages. Well, this is all again informative, most of it, with the Spanish arrival, the colonization. Already there were many indigenous languages already there. In the north, you can see some names, Diaguitas, Atacameño, Coyas, Aymaras. In south, you can go with Mapudungun, etc., etc. In Patagonia, already there are many indigenous languages extinct. That I will show you where. In the map also, you can see there the different distribution of indigenous languages. Now, in terms of the population, you can see Mapudungun is more or less, Mapuche is more or less at 77 to 78% of the whole indigenous population, then followed by Aymara, and then you have Rapa Nui and all, and other is more or less 5%. This is all the statistics as per the INEA, Instituto Nacional de Estadística, of, if I'm not wrong, 2017 was the last census. So this is the date, and you have a total of 2.1 million indigenous population present in Chile. Now, there are two things to be mentioned here. How do you do the census? They ask, ¿cuántas personas se identifican como perteneciente a un pueblo indígena y originaria? So how many people you yourself identify? So this is a self-identification process, no? So this again raises question of how, whether of identity. Well, I will not identify myself as indigenous because I'm just, it's a food for thought. Because identifying as an indigenous may have some social implications, may have something maybe not seen well in the society. You understand? So this also is a lot of, but looking objectively at it, there is no other way we can map out what is the number. This is what I already explained. You have a tricontinental with a triangular setup, north, south, and west. So west with Rapa Nui, south and Mapudungun, in the north Aymara and Quechua. Chile has 4 living indigenous languages, Aymara, Quechua, Rapa Nui, Mapudungun, 3 languages which are extremely vulnerable, Licantai, Kaveskar and Yagan, and 2 communities have definitely lost their languages, which are Diaguitas and Koyas. Now, what happens in 2003, UNESCO devised, they had a team and they devised, okay, let's study the indigenous languages across the world, not indigenous, sorry, languages across the world, and let's put them in the various degree of endangerment, no? Nivel de peligro. And they had 8 or 9 criteria to distinguish, to put a language within a degree. And based on that, you have safe, vulnerable, definitely endangered, severely, critically, and extinct. So if there is no speaker left, it is the last. So there are many, at least 2-3 languages in Chile, indigenous languages, which are already extinct. There is a data by UNESCO 2005 and Ethnologue 2019. You can see the all are either critically endangered, severely, or vulnerable. So this calls for attention for a policy at the national level by the authorities to consider how to preserve this, because if you lose a language, you lose the identity, you lose the culture, you lose everything related to that language, related to that community, sorry. Well, these are the data which I secured from UNESCO about the different languages, Atacameño, Aymara, and all, where it is spoken, how many, what is the vitality, how many speakers do they have, etc. So because of lack of time, I won't go one by one to each, okay? Now, coming back to within the, coming back to this, the second point within the first part is the identity, Mapuche identity. No? Now, they are a kind of a symbol of indigenous resistance in the southern cone. Worldwide, if you see, this is the status. Now, what happens because of that, this is because of also because of their number, because it's a 78% of indigenous population in Mapuche, and in the history you already know that Spanish couldn't cross, they couldn't conquer Mapuche ever. So somewhere Mapuche in the psyche of people is symbolized as a sign of resistance. Nowadays, contextualizing, you can see the news in the last 5 years, and you can again you can see what kind of relation is between the government and the Mapuche people. So overall, the Mapuche movement has developed around 3 demands. This is by Mesa, Lopeandia, and Forrester and Vega 2000. through campesino demands, ethnic demands, and ethno-national recognition demands. Within the ethnic demands is the respect towards the indigenous identity, appropriate education, and the official status of Mapudungun, among others. So I wanted to focus more on this demand which they have asked. Now coming to the indigenous law, as you know, in 1993 it was enforced, the law number 19,253, and this law was promoted by the native people to establish and consecrate the constitutional recognition of their existence. Enacted in 1993, it laid the foundation for the new socio-political relationship between the Chilean state and the native people. And within this law, what our focus is about the language, about how this law, somewhere in relation to the government bodies, are trying, what are the policies within the law that can enhance in a way the language, indigenous languages. So the actions established in the law, some of them are use and conservation of indigenous language together with Spanish in areas of high indigenous density, establishment in the national education system of a pragmatic unit that enables students to access adequate knowledge of indigenous culture, promotion of broadcasting of programs in radio, and promotion and establishment of chairs of indigenous history and culture and languages in higher education. I'm not sure how many of these actions are in real terms happening. For example, I don't know if I'm wrong, this last action, I don't see in any chair professor in any university for that matter, maybe in University of Chile, maybe, but I don't see this action being in real terms happening in any of the universities. Again, this is another International Labour Organization Convention, ILO, we say, in 169. In 2008, Chile adopted it. Within this, again, there is one Article 28, which says the convention establishes that indigenous children should be taught to write in their own indigenous languages whenever feasible, and provisions should be adopted to preserve their languages and promote the development and practice of their languages. I won't go in details because of paucity of time. Now this is important. This is important because when I came to Chile first in 2017, thanks to Professor Andrew for the invitation that time, and then again in 2019, I had this curiosity, most of the Chileans at that point of time had the curiosity, still many of them have, that how can you manage so many languages? In India, for example, 22 official languages, because in Chile we don't have. So first thing what happened was, because in Chile you don't have a normative framework for any language, for that matter, for Castellano, for Spanish also they don't have. There are some language laws, but not as a linguistic policy in C, They have given some laws here and there, but they don't have that in the constitution, political constitution of 1980, which is still to date. There is no mention of any language, for that matter, Spanish or English or any language, that it should be considered official. No. And that's what I put. Chile is a country with non-intervention linguistic policy, without going into much depth as to why. There are no legal provisions or significant measures on the part of the central government to make real changes in the linguistic reality of the country. The measures taken by the government are taken by institutions that do not have enough political and economic weight to make the changes they intend to make. For example, CONADI, if they want to do, they can, but they don't weigh that much. And if they give, for example, there's one action has to be taken, but if the government doesn't do, then it's there on the paper itself. These are some of the laws I was referring to, but these are all just here and there use of Castellano, use of English for some translation like that, but not specifically talking about any particular language and giving it some value. How much of your time? 5 minutes? Okay, I'll try to. we are on the second part. Yeah, bilingual intercultural education program again in 1996. The government adopted with this Konadi in together with Mineduk, and they were in. I mean, there are some details that how this program has to be done, what are the modalities, the methods to be followed, for example, of teaching. So some of the experts already talked about a little about the intercultural component, not from the theoretical point of view. So, but the idea was this also exists in the framework, and it is in comparison, it is quite successful with the other actions which are present. Now, this Inglés Abre Puerta, another program for related to language, in this case English, adopted in 2004 with the mission of improving the level of English learned by students from 5th grade to 12th grade through the definition of national standards for English learning, a professional development strategy for teachers and support for English teachers in the classroom. And there's, as I told you in the beginning, there is another institute, everyone you must be knowing, this Academia Chilena de la Lengua, which was again founded in 1885 to watch over the purity and splendor of Spanish language. Coming to the last part about the migration, I will give you some figures. Now, for example, the top 5 countries of foreign nationals residing in Chile in 2020 continue the same trend as the previous, with the top 5 group being Venezuela 30.7, Peru 16.3, Haiti 12.5, Colombia 11.4, and Bolivia 8.5. Here is more or less a figure. Oh, we are very small diaspora. Just to give you a figure, I guess more or less 2,000 to 3,000, if I'm not wrong, Indians in Chile, in diaspora of India. And but to my surprise, the first Indian, as they say, we don't know the history, but he came, he was crossing and going to United States. But he stopped at Panama. But he came to Panama Channel and he came out in Punta Arenas. Exactly. He came to Punta Arenas, and you have a big Indian diaspora there in. Yes. Yes, the foreign population in Chile as 1.46 million, representing an absolute increase of 11,700. This is the figures. Now, what happens? These figures, in a way, the migration in a way also affect the aspect of languages, and on one hand from linguistic perspective, and on the other hand the aspect of how to govern this. We call it in Spanish gobernanza lingüística. So linguistic governance is also affected by this process of migration. Another peculiarity of this country is that it is surrounded by all Spanish speaking countries. You have Argentina, Peru, Bolivia. So you don't have that much, all they speak. Maybe there is a little variation in terms of accent, in terms of lexical words and all, but you don't have anything, a different language as such. But for example, within Brazil, you have Brazil Portuguese, but you come out with Brazil, you have Argentina or other country which speaks Spanish. So this in a way also affect the policy governed by the government in terms of languages. This is in terms of the current socio-political realities from when I came in 2019. You have a social outbreak, you have referendum going on, plebiscite, presidential elections, and then again rejection of Magna Carta. So this all in a way can be linked to the question of language policy, because I have gone through some of the proposals in the election, and I saw what kind of vision they have for languages. So we have to still see, because still now is the Constitution of 1980 is the one which is there, because they have rejected, and we have to again I'll say we have to wait and watch for the next move. And from the academia, that is the idea that we propose something in terms of concretize the language policy at the Chilean national level. That's the idea of this research network. In terms of positioning of, I found one tweet of government of Chile in 2020, just before pandemic it was. It says, cada 2 semanas desaparece una lengua que se lleva consigo todo el patrimonio cultural e intelectual. En el Día Lengua Materna 2020 invitamos a promover el multilingualismo y la diversidad cultural, transmitiendo y preservando los conocimientos y la cultura tradicionales. So the preservation of knowledge and the traditional knowledge and traditional culture is also part of so-called keeping a language, keeping a society multilingual by preserving the indigenous traditional knowledge. Well, this is in short, it can be concluded that the strengthening and promotion of these languages is a task, and that is not only the responsibility of the educational sphere, but requires the generation of a broad policy of recognition and promotion that tends to normalize them and facilitate their learning in community, social and institutional spaces through which their production and vitalization is guaranteed. This is my last slide. Yes, this is my last. Optimist estimates, this is from UNESCO, data from UNESCO says that at least 50% of today's spoken languages will be extinct or seriously endangered by 2100. So in another, say, 65 years, 50% of today's language will be gone. And that's true. More pessimist but also realist estimate that claim that 90 to 95% will become extinct or seriously endangered by the end of this century. Most of these languages are indigenous languages, as you know. Humanity may well have only 300 to 600 oral languages left that are unthreatened by the end of this century. Thank you.
Agradecemos la presentación del Dr. Ranjiva Ranjan. A continuación abrimos un espacio de 15 minutos para dialogar con nuestros exponentes. Pueden realizar sus preguntas y comentarios.
Si alguien tiene pregunta, duda, comentario, consulta, en español o English, you are... but let them, many of will not speak. If you want in Spanish or English, it's up to you. If you English, better. Or from our group of researcher also, if you want to share something from there, anyone? No? ¿Usted?
Hello. I will try to make the question in English, but I know why. How you see the fragility of the policy in Chile? Because we have a lot of stuff, and also we have a lot of document that say something. But in your analysis, how you can see in the future the strongest of our policy based on your project, how we can, as a university, as a network, we strengthen this condition for the national policy.
So what you are asking is how our network, research network, will in a way contribute or strengthen the national scenario or national toma de decisión in, like that. Well, our research team comprises of interdisciplinary, from different disciplines. You can see from EFL teachers, from Gender Perspective International, I being from acquisition, adquisición de segunda lengua, second language acquisition field. People in India are from foreign language, one from multicultural and multilingual field. from Brazil we have another teacher. So whole team are from different backgrounds. They have their own idea, they have their own specialization in related to language, some aspect of language. So we in the group, we, for example, in UNESCO, we have 7 identified themes related to multilingualism, internationalization, multilingualism and language teaching. So we, for example, added one by Mariana, multilingualism and gender. This is a new theme we have added to the 7. So that way we are kind of deliberating on different aspects of multilingualism and language policy. Now coming back to the second, how it will help in the Chilean policy, that is we are the idea is vinculación. As we will make a team, we will give, and this team will, in the idea as it is in the convocatoria also, is that this team postulates to external funding with the help of, for example, Regular, of European Union or of UNESCO, so that we can come up with some policy document which will help the Chile, or not Chile, or for that matter any country, to take measures related to language. So this network, we are still deliberating to see how to apply for some bigger project, which in a way will help to in some kind of formulation of some policy document or some kind of research in the field of multilingualism or policy, language policy. I don't know if any of you want to add.
Just to add, because in terms of Chile, there's so many things happening in terms of this language landscape. We do have all these foreigners coming in. So today, it's no more Spanish oriented. So how are we going to move on in this perspective to making this a different landscape, multilingual landscape, which obliges us also to look into the issues, what is really happening. And this team is expecting, in a way, to first start disseminating by talking about this topic. And especially for Maule, this is the first time someone has come up with a project in this nature to create some kind of awareness that multilingualism is important. So the first time. With this heading on to create not only network based on UCM, but also to open up. And that would be the second step. All these conferences that we are organizing, this seminar and the future international conference, helps also in this disseminating the same idea and later positioning, hopefully on the long run, through another project, come up with a document that could somehow respond to the original question that we are raising here.
You want to add anything?
Looking at how you can integrate in your view of the needs of the territories, and also how can you get some information from them to create the network or the next step.
So yes, in the title you can see in the beginning that this regional in the regions of Chile. So we will start from local only. From there we will pick up and we'll go from bottom top. Yes, you.
I have a question. Why one of the presenters told that from the 15 universities, 9 teach a subject related with interculturality? Do you have the reason why the other 6 don't have it? What happened with the 6 that don't have any subject related with interculturality?
Okay, I guess this is for Jose.
Thank you. What I share from that work in progress are the early findings. I still am not in a position to answer that question. We can anticipate by interpreting the findings. And what I find already is that a strong say what they declare in their profiles, perfiles de egreso, has say, strong contradiction with that they plan in their curricula. So otherwise, what you promise in your curricula won't be, say, finally achieved, because there's no way. And this is the idea, to identify areas that finally, I'm highlighting schools that finally show coherence between what they declare in their profiles and what they do through their teaching training. But I don't know, I should go, I'm not ready to answer that question, but this is a fact. 15 schools are nationwide. Some of them do offer, some of them don't. And this is what they offer. And then the answer of the team would be, say, probably the recommendations. That's the idea. Okay. Yeah.
If you can just briefly tell your name and which year you pertain to.
Yeah. Well, my name is Sebastián Camaño. I am in 5th year. And my question is, well, it wasn't directly talkable before, but it is still related to the topic. So I want to know if you believe our country, Chile, should focus on a specific language in the future, maybe aside from Spanish and English, perhaps even considering a more global scale. Because many languages are being more and more used, like for example Chinese or French, which is another important language, of course, especially which is used in scientific investigations. So yeah, that's my question. What do you think?
Any of the research team members? I mean, the question what he raised is very good. I mean, what he's asked, how do we visualize the language policy in Chilean context? Apart from Spanish, what other languages should play a role in the formulation of language policy? That's the question somewhere? Yes.
So, language per se, just bringing language for the sake of bringing language is not going to help. We understand that language has to do with identity. There are so many languages that are extinct. That's what Professor Ranjiva shared. So what happens when we don't have people speaking that language? Means there's no existence of that community itself. So in Chile, we do have this stronghold on Spanish and English. It's thought that English could contribute to the bilingualism, but our country is already bilingual. It's not just because of English. There are other languages, but how to revive, strengthen, give life to those languages. Recognizing that aspect is also recognizing the community, their identity. So probably in our curricula, as what Professor Jose shared, to which extent that we are taking that into consideration. Now you are in the classrooms. You see people coming from different nationalities, yes. Probably, yes, we are limited to Latin America, so Venezuela or Peru for that matter. Their accents are different, but there's something beyond that accent which has to do with their identity. Recognizing even the small details, So that's why clinging to this internationalization, no? Because wherever you go, you are what you are. And that speaks a lot in terms of especially this project that we are looking into.
I think in terms of planning, I think we should be looking at having some kind of, organization of phases or something like that. Because it has to do with identity, and English, I don't think, is part of a national identity Chile wants to have, for example, but English is vital for economy in Chile and how Chile wants to project itself as a country more than, like culturally speaking, in terms of finance and being out there. So I think, first of all, so I was thinking of two phases. The first phase, it has to recognize its own languages. So first of all, Mapudungun should be in every legal aspect or every legal document part of the country. And From that perspective, Chile usually takes up the example of New Zealand, for example. New Zealand has 3 official languages. So it is New Zealand English, which is a variety of English that is very close to British English, but it's not quite. So it's something in between Australian English and it is New Zealand English. And then also Maori and sign languages. Sign language is an official language in New Zealand. So everything you see in the street, all the signs, everything is in the 3 languages, everything. So that's I think the step we should be getting at. Maybe sign language is not for Chile a language that should become official yet, maybe, but it could be a co-official language, and maybe we could have, as they have in the European Union, like recognized languages as official languages, and so we could have, I don't know, Spanish, Mapudungun, and some other languages, and then co-official languages, such as sign language, and then other indigenous languages. So that's one thing we should be doing, and revitalizing. So the Kota language may have been lost, but we do have very elderly people in the Kota communities, so linguists may be able to revitalize that language, for example. So they don't speak it, they don't use it, but we still have, there's the knowledge, so we may be able to rescue it. And yes, so, and then in Argentina, there are people who speak it, like, and they've been crossing over and, like they share many things. So that's one thing. And then also how Chile wants to project itself in terms of economy and finance and so on. And English is a huge part of it. It may not become an official language, or it depends on, it's a political decision more than a cultural one. I think that's why I see like 2 phases going on at the same time. And I think recommendations in terms of multilingualism in Chile, we'll have to consider those 2 lines as separate ones. One has to do with identity and, cultural identity, and the other one wants to put Chile out there in the world, and that's a different thing. So we will have to think in terms of those 2.
Yes, thank you. I'll just tell, yes, I completely agree with you, Mariana. Everywhere, for that matter, not only in Chile, there is always a fight between this viewpoints of any theme in this matter, for example, language. From globalized perspective, English being the one medium of communication among all, and then we have, on the other hand, we have this cultural identity, we have this how to preserve the traditional knowledge, the cultural knowledge, which we, for example, in Chile, we have so much in the south, in the north, in India or in New Zealand or any country will have this kind of so we have these 2 poles. So we have to see, and it's a political decision that the government has to take, but in taking those decisions, they only consider solo una mirada. Sometimes they don't go deeper into the other aspect, and they generally go with the what so-called I won't say, but you understand. So they go with that flow, and they try to sometime, not always, sometime forget the other viewpoint, which if our research network comes, through our research network, we will try to in future postulate a project regarding this, because this can be researched from for example, language identity, language belief, language, how do you think about his or her language is also, everything is so related. So how we have to think about this, and I agree with you how exactly this language plays a crucial role, and the toma de decisión, the government as a political decision maker should take what step towards this polarity between two images, for that matter. I don't know if anyone more wants to add any comment or. Yes, let me read. Sorry. Yeah, I will just ask. Let me turn on the camera. Yeah, Claudia, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. Hello, everyone.
Yes. Thank you. Let me present Professor Claudia. Professor Claudia from Argentina, Universidad Nacional Mar del Plata, is one of the partner in the research team, and she has put in the chat. She says maybe international collaborations with Argentina could help revitalize the indigenous languages shared between Chile and Argentina. Very good point. Claudia, you want to say something on this?
I was thinking that we have a similar situation to the one just outlined today. English has been for a long time the very first foreign language in which we think, and we have somehow ignored our rich heritage. And since we share some of those indigenous languages, I think it could help us if we work together, trying to cooperate, join efforts, well, just to preserve those languages and in some way at least start making it visible that we need those people to have a voice, to appear in the documents, as Mariana has said. And since we share so much, maybe it's easier if we divide the efforts, join the efforts, and do it together. That's just one thought.
No, thank you.
We also have a Kosha community. I mean, we share a lot.
Yes. Thank you, Claudia. Yes, that would be a very one of the very nice initiative which we can take as a research group to have this collaboration to see how to revitalize the languages, indigenous languages in this case, shared by the Chile and Argentina, because as you mentioned, there are few languages in the north of Chile, and you have indigenous population shared in both the countries. So that could be very nice. I don't know, you want to add anything? No. Yeah. Thank you, Claudia, for your comment. Thank you. Anybody else? You're good? Yes. Just let me announce you one thing. We have the email IDs of each one of you, so we will be sharing a brief survey of the seminar and this lanzamiento. So please respond to that survey. Thank you.
Señoras y señores, la Universidad Católica del Maule, mediante la Facultad de Ciencias de la Educación, agradece vuestra presencia en este lanzamiento del proyecto y seminario Establecer Puentes, explorando el multilingüismo en un mundo globalizado, enmarcado en el proyecto de fomento a la vinculación internacional. Por último, los dejamos cordialmente invitados a seguir compartiendo de un catering a las afueras de este auditorio. Por su asistencia, gracias y muy